fresh to death. Morning guys, welcome to my channel. This is Philosophy. So today's video is all about fire-friendly hobbies or frugal hobbies, hobbies you can do that don't take a ton of money to get started and can be really fulfilling. So the majority of items on this list are hobbies that I currently have or ones that I've done in the past or tried in the past, and some of them are ones that I actually want to start doing more frequently. So let's get into the list. Hope you guys love this video. So the first item on this list is hiking. If you live in an area like I do, which is in Calgary, Alberta, I am very, very close to the mountains, to the Rocky Mountains. They're about an hour, hour and a half drive away, and there's a lot of world-class hiking in this area. There's also a ton of really good walks in and around the Calgary area that's a little bit closer if you're just into more like nature walks and going for a walk around, say, a lake or maybe around a community. Getting outside and doing active things, including walking, running, yoga, or any kind of thing that you can do and manipulate to be an outdoor activity in terms of working out or exercise, I think is a really great hobby to have. It's also getting you in the kind of shape that maybe you want to be in later in life so that you have less health issues. And a lot of this stuff is free or relatively cheap. If you invest in a good pair of walking shoes or hiking boots, and some clothes that can get you through a lot of the seasons if you're going out for a walk or for a run, a jog. Next on the list is gardening. This is something that I only got into this year, and I currently live in a condo. I have a little bit of south sun exposure, so I do have a few plants that are on my balcony currently. And right now I have green onions and a tomato plant, and then also a basil plant. I'll insert a little clip here of what they look like right now. I did plant the tomato plant a little bit late, so it hasn't really gotten to the point where I can harvest the tomatoes yet, but the green onions I use constantly, and I've also read that you can actually take these inside in the winter and keep growing them inside your house. Around gardening, a lot of the equipment, the pots, the soil and everything, I've been able to find really, really cheap. A lot of this equipment I've actually bought from Dollarama, and the soil I normally get from Home Depot or sometimes a grocery store or Walmart. Places like that tend to have soil, like really big bags of soil for probably like $6 or $7. And this is a really cheap, awesome hobby to have. It can take up a lot of time if you have a pretty substantial garden. And if you live in a condo like me, doing it on your balcony or doing it maybe in a little greenhouse kind of situation is something that I'd really like to try and expand on next season. On the same kind of topic as gardening, we have plants. Collecting plants, taking care of plants, repotting them, propagating them as well. There's so many things that you can do with plants, and a lot of them are very inexpensive. You can find plants at your local grocery store, sometimes Walmart and Canadian Tire when they're in season for really, really cheap. And then if you can take care of them and really make sure that they're getting the kind of light and water and everything they need, you could potentially propagate them later on into new plants. I have quite a lot of plants at this point. A lot of them were gifts, but I have spent probably $100 to $200, I would say, in new pots and soil and getting them kind of new homes and just hanging them, putting them on really nice plant stands. Another hobby that I very recently picked up is home brewing. I'm a really big fan of craft beer, craft cider, and craft liquors and everything like that, and supporting the craft industry. I thought I would give it a shot in creating my own craft cider at home last year during the lockdown, and I bought all the equipment online. It cost about $130 in total. I've only made one batch of cider so far, and I still have two pretty substantial bottles of this stuff. It turned out decent, but I'm not a huge drinker, so I haven't really gone through the supply that I did make about a year ago. So I'm waiting until that is depleted before making another batch. But if you're someone who likes to entertain, and with all the restrictions kind of going up and down right now, if you're having friends over that are vaccinated and everything like that, homebrewing can be a lot cheaper than going to your local craft brewery or store and buying beer. This is also a really awesome hobby to have if you're very experimental and you want to try new and different styles of beer or cider or even wine. And getting started can be a little bit upfront, but once you get going, the ingredients, once you actually have the equipment, are quite inexpensive. So this is something I really recommend if you like to drink and you want to kind of try a different hobby. Next on the list is a whole group of art type things. So we got painting, drawing, coloring, crafts. There's so many things that you can do on an art type of side. I like to do some DIY home decor type of things. Sometimes I created this really cool little beer with nails, and then you put the string around it. And that was really fun. It took me about an afternoon, maybe like 2 to 3, 4 hours to complete it. And things like that I think are really inexpensive and can be a really awesome hobby. A lot of people also make this into a side income on Etsy. Another thing that I do from time to time is those adult coloring books, if you guys remember those, where you just have like a big coloring book with lots of different pictures and stuff and you can color them in. I do that every once in a while if I'm feeling really bored, but it can be very time consuming. I find it's really fun to bring coloring books on planes and just kind of like plug in some headphones, listen to music and draw away. It's a really good way to like activate your creative mind. I have painted in the past, although I haven't in a few years now, but you can buy a lot of these art and craft supplies at your local dollar store. If you're in Canada, Dollarama is a great resource. They have so many awesome little craft things in their craft aisle, and there's almost endless possibilities of what you can do and what you can create. The next hobby I'd like to talk about is photography. This can obviously be quite a bit of money up front if you're investing in a really expensive camera and maybe going down the road of getting a bunch of different lenses and filters and things like that. However, most of us have a smartphone, which is what I actually film on. And I like to use my cell phone to actually take really awesome photos and to kind of like explore the world of photography a little bit. I also have a Canon Super Zoom camera, and I use that for wildlife photography. If I go out and I'm, in the mountains or something and I see some wildlife, I like to use that to take photos. My spouse actually has quite a bit of camera equipment. He has a drone, he has a couple of little gimbals and a couple of cameras as well that have a bunch of interchangeable lenses. So I am really enjoying exploring some of that. And we have been using some of the photos we've taken to blow them up and make them artwork in our home, which I think is really awesome. You can obviously start this hobby for a very low cost if you have a smartphone, or you can look for used cameras and kind of play around with different lighting, different times of day, different scenes and everything, and just kind of like let your creative mind flow. The next one is cooking. Cooking is a really big hobby of mine. I like to try different recipes and kind of just play with different foods and see what you can create. Baking, you can also add on to this. Baking and cooking can be really awesome hobbies. They can be very time consuming, especially with baking. I know it's kind of a science when it comes to baking. Cooking, on the other hand, you can really experiment a lot more, and most of the time it's going to turn out okay. And I think expanding your skill set in the cooking realm is also just a really good life skill to have. And this can obviously be very low in cost because you can pick what ingredients you want, you can pick the things that are on sale and try to come up with something really unique and delicious that you could maybe add into your routine of weekly meals. Cooking is also a great hobby to share with someone else. You can share this with friends or your spouse or your kids and really let them get involved in helping you create something and then enjoying the finished product at the end. The next hobby is reading and writing. I'm gonna group these two together because I like to do both. I like to read. I frequently take out books from the library and like to read them. And it's a really great hobby to have because you can bring a book pretty much anywhere. You can bring it to the park and take an afternoon and just sit and read. You can take it on a plane if you're traveling. And there's so many things that you can read about. There's so many things you can learn about. It's just such a great way to expand your knowledge and learn something new. I like to journal. I like to write about my finances, obviously, and keep track of everything in a book, but also on my phone in a spreadsheet. And writing out kind of thoughts or ideas and goals for the future, I think is a really great way to just get everything out on paper and make it a little more concrete. And then also be able to just let things flow, let the creativity kind of come out. And I think writing is actually something that you need to practice. In terms of reading and writing, the more you read, I think the more that you learn and the more sort of things that you retain. Maybe you increase your vocabulary a little bit, learn new words. There are lots of times where I'm reading a book and I have to look up a word. And I think that that's just a really great way to keep learning and keep growing your mind. The next item on this list is video games. This is something that I have done since probably middle school, maybe even preschool. I grew up on video games. My brother and I always played video games together and always was a part of my life. These can be kind of expensive up front, especially if you have to buy a console and the games itself. But once you get past the initial upfront cost, you can also buy consoles that are used, and usually you can find console packages that have a ton of games with them as well. But once you get past that upfront cost, video games are extremely inexpensive if you're playing them a lot and getting a lot of joy out of them. But there are an endless amount of video games out there that you can try. It's a really great hobby for introverts, of course, if you want to play at home by yourself, but you can also connect with friends online if you want to pay for an online subscription. The next hobby on this list is thrifting. Thrifting is a huge hobby of mine. I absolutely love thrifting. And I kind of think I have a little bit of an addiction to thrifting. I'm not gonna lie. I love thrifting so much. I just wanna go out constantly, look for all the gems and just go through all these things and buy all these amazing clothes and wear them. It's also something really fun that you can do with other people. If you have friends that like to thrift, it can be a really fun day out where you're just going to a bunch of different thrift stores and you can spend like 20 bucks and just have a completely amazing full day and get so many awesome clothes. And I wanted to mention a few group activities on this list that are inexpensive that you can do with your friends or in a bigger group of people. And these are mostly outdoor activities like sports or any kind of frisbee, any kind of sport that you can just do outside, like throwing the ball around. If you have, baseball and football, obviously you can throw the football around with your friends in the park or something like that. And hiking is another big thing that you can do with a pretty big group of people. And I personally love going on hikes with a lot of people because you really get sort of groups of people who are in different categories of how fast they're going. So you're never really left alone if you're kind of like slower. Some of the hobbies that I really enjoy doing myself, and I would love to hear from you guys down in the comments below about what hobbies you do that are inexpensive or maybe a little bit more upfront, but then become very inexpensive after that upfront cost. I'm always looking for new hobbies and to try new things. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.